Okay, so before I quickly do the preview for these three midweek games, which is actually a night edition of midweek games, because all three of these games kick off later than 7 o'clock my time, which is 10 o'clock Eastern time. This game kicks off at 7:30 my time, 10:30 p.m. Pacific. This game kicks off at 8, which is 11 p.m. Eastern, and this game also kicks off at 8 o'clock. So a little bit of a MLS Soccer After the Dark midweek edition. But obviously, first of all, I am going to do just a very quick kind of preview about the Campeones Cup, which I didn't put it up here because I'm not going to do a very long one because I don't really kind of like, I know how TFC is, but I don't really know like kind of like a lot about Tigres. In fact, I don't even really know any other player from Tigres besides Geniac. But obviously it is the Campeones Cup, and there obviously is a trophy at stake for both of these teams. And for those of you that don't know what the Campeones Cup is, it's basically kind of like a super cup of both the team that won MLS and the team that won Liga MX go head to head each other for one night, and the winner of that game will of course win the trophy. And there's been a lot of talk about how this game is kind of like a glorified friendly for both of these teams, and that both of these teams doesn't really kind of care. Although I will say about TFC, anytime you have the chance to win a trophy, and especially how difficult this season has been, and how it just felt like with the fact that they had CCL earlier in the season and how it kind of complicated the schedule, and then they never really recovered because they had so many injuries, and that when they tried to recover, it was a little bit too late. This would be definitely something that they would want to have and want to win to potentially look back this season in a positive way. At least there's going to be one positive thing that is going to happen. And TFC has been Tigres before. They actually beaten Tigres in the same game that will happen tonight, or not tonight, but on Wednesday, where they of course will be playing at BMO Field, and I think TFC beat Tigres 2-1. So certainly you wouldn't think that TFC would be just a heavy underdogs coming into this game. And also the fact that I know Tigres is not doing very well in Liga MX, according to a couple of people that talked about how they are only currently in 7th in Liga MX, and they are not really having the same amazing year that they had last season. So they're kind of like what TFC is that they're kind of got hung over by CCL, and they're kind of like in a period where they're not really doing very well in the league. But yeah, it is certainly a big game, and anytime if an MLS team get a chance to beat and Liga MX team, certainly that would be a match that I would definitely look at. And it certainly is a game that I'm hoping TFC can win, representing MLS, and once again proving that MLS is right near the same level of where Liga MX is, and that it has now really catch up to that league. So yeah, that of course is kind of like my only preview about that game. Also, by the way, it's going to be interesting to see what Greg Vanney decided to start his big guns in this game, because like what I mentioned in the preview of how Altidore, Javinko, and Vasquez all play in that LA Galaxy game, will they be playing again in a kind of short break in this game against Tigres? But either way, let's talk about these three games. I'm going to just quickly talk about it because it's 10:07 right now, and since it's a school night, I have to try to do this quickly before I have to go take a shower and then go to bed. But first of all, we got Portland versus Columbus. So Portland, of course, took a huge loss against Houston. They lost 4-1 on the road, while Columbus drew 0-0 to FC Dallas. And in some way, I will say that Portland kind of need this game more than Columbus, considering the fact that they're just hovering above that red line, and they have a 4-point gap over Vancouver. And yeah, if they drop points in this game and Vancouver get a win over the weekend, then all of a sudden that's a 1 point gap between Vancouver and Portland. And that can get really nervy if you're a Timbers fan, if that gap gets to that point. And there could be a big possibility that Portland could potentially miss the playoffs this season. But as for Columbus, I think they're pretty much secure themselves in the playoffs. I think they're like 10 points ahead. Unless they have a massive collapse, I don't think this team is going to really just miss the playoffs. The question is, can Columbus get a better seeding? Because they're currently fourth in the seeding. I think they have a 4 point gap over the Union, but they also have a 5 point gap that they need to make up on NYCFC. And keep in mind, they have a game in hand over NYCFC, and this is the game in hand for them. So if they can win this game, and hoping that NYCFC maybe drop points, and knowing how NYCFC now in these last couple of games, it's a high possibility that they could drop points. Maybe Columbus can sneak into that third spot and could be in a pretty comfortable position when playoff time does kind of come for them. But like I said, I think the Timbers need this one more, especially the fact that they're playing at home, which they have been really good this season. But meanwhile, moving on to the next match and talk about their Cascadia neighbor, Seattle, who is just red hot right now. I mean, I've been saying it every preview, and I don't need to remind you why they are just red hot right now. This number pretty much speaks itself. And the Union, just like Portland, took a 4-1 drumming, but this time, unlike how Portland lost 4-1 on the road, they lost 4-1 at home. And that was not a good performance by the Union whatsoever. And I have a feeling that coming into this match, yeah, the odds are really stacking on Philly because, one, they're playing on the road against the hottest team in the league. Two, they have to fly all the way across the other side of the country to play this match. And three, it's a midweek game. So the odds is really stacked on the Union in this game. And keep in mind, the Union only have a 5 point gap over DC United, and I believe a 6 point gap over, or actually no, they have a 4 point gap on DC United and a 5 point gap over New England, and or actually, oh my goodness, I just literally forgot that Montreal was actually in that sixth spot. But in some ways, Philly is still not safe, and I think, as I mentioned before, they have a 5 point gap on DC United. That is actually the correct thing. But, for Philly, they have a really, really tough stretch. I mean, it's not just the Sounders is a tough opponent that they have to face down the stretch. They still have to play a lot of tough team too. Teams like the New York team, the Red Bulls, and NYCFC. I think they have to play TFC on the road too. That's not going to be easy, even though TFC is probably going to give up at that point. So it's no guarantee for the Union that they're going to make the playoffs. And as much as I want to say the same thing for the Union as for the Timbers and how they need this one more, I just think that with all those odds stacked against Philly and how good Seattle is, it's going to be really hard to say that Seattle is going to drop points against the Union. But yeah, next up, moving on to the next match, and this is probably the most obvious one. The Quakes are probably going to lose this one, even though they did fire Michael Starhay, which, as I mentioned in the review, I'm going to say it again. I did do a reaction video, so make sure you guys check that out. But yeah, even though they did fire Michael Starhay and now have Steve Ralston as the manager of the Quakes, I don't think that has changed anything. I mean, I don't know how Ralston's tactics and playing style is going to be like. I'm not quite sure if he's going to be like Starhay, just kind of like bunker down at home. But one thing that I'm hoping that he will do is that he actually give young guys a chance. He actually give TT and also Jackson a chance, which, by the way, Jackson Yu in that last game against Sporting KC, I know I didn't mention this in the review or in the match vlog, but he actually complete every single pass. Yeah, that is a pretty good reason of why you definitely need to start Jackson Yu. And, I know that these young guys that potentially is going to be in this game will have to face against the best attack in MLS, and I am just shitting my pants of how in the world are we going to deal with Joseph Martinez, Almiron, and also Tito Villalba. But at the same time, if we're playing young guys and if they at time look very promising, I don't really care what the result is going to be. I couldn't care less if we get destroyed 6-0, but we play young guys in and they look energized and they look like they want to win a position and be part of this rebuilding process the Quakes are in the future. So yeah, this game is going to be very interesting. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a demolition, but I really don't care if it's a demolition or not because one, our season is done, and two, Starhay is no longer the manager of the Quakes. But yeah, either way, that is pretty much it for this quick preview of these midweek game. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of these games, and make sure you guys leave a prediction below. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.